Hello, and thank you for agreeing to be part of our evaluation group for EnviroPlot. What this video tutorial is going to be an overview of my program EnviroPlot and the files that you'll need to complete its evaluation and the evaluation of the flat file system. If you're watching this video, you should have received the email or a similar email here to this one on the left. We'll need that as we go through this tutorial. So the first thing that we should do is either open or download Google Earth. If you've never used Google Earth before, please go ahead and download it and play with it for a few minutes. Go ahead and pause this tutorial and get familiar with the controls and the interface. So go ahead and open it up here. I've already got mine loaded. So once it's loaded, we'll go ahead and minimize that to the background for a minute. So the second thing that we're going to need to do is download the data files. And those can be found here in this Dropbox link. Go ahead and click on that and start them downloading. It's rather large, so it might take a few minutes. Mine is already downloaded, and I've opened it up here in the background. So just a few things to note about these files is that these are all files we've downloaded from the EPA and other sources. None of them have had any sort of pre-processing done on them. The only thing that's been done is we've shrank some of the files because they are too large for you to easily view. As you can see over here, Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Word have rather low limits when you're talking about large-scale data. So once you get those downloaded, you'll notice that there are quite a few files in here. You won't be needing all of them, but they're there just in case. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is you're going to want to go ahead and open first the National Data Overview. This file right here, just go ahead and double click on that and it'll load right up here in Google Earth. And so while it's buffering, take a few seconds, you will first notice over here on the My Places pane that we have a new file tree. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just disable the whole file tree. We're just going to get these loaded up and then we'll go through them. So go ahead and open the next one, which is our State Data Overview. And once that's loaded up, go ahead and turn it off as well. Now, we want to go ahead and set up our Google Earth for easy use. So you'll see down here we have a few suggestions. So when using Google Earth, we are going to want to make sure that we first turn off the layers that we don't need. So I've already done this. Sometimes when you start Google Earth, it starts off with all of these options checked. We don't need those. They're just going to add distraction to the data. So go ahead and uncheck those and just leave on borders. That'll make it easy to see where we're at. Next, it's worthy to note that there is a search pane up here. We're not going to want to use that. That search bar is only going to search for places within Google Earth itself. It's not going to do any searching of our files. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out of the way because we don't need it. And we don't need the layers anymore. There is, however, a really nice search bar down here at the bottom. So if we want to search through the files that we've loaded, this is a good way to do it. We can go ahead and enter an element or item that we want to search for, and we'll go ahead and just search for the first occurrence of that, and lo and behold, we do have lead in our database here. So that's a great and easy way to search through everything that we have. The next thing to note here in Google Earth is the file structure of our data. Each of these two visualizations is relatively the same. They have our legend and our two logos, and then the main file tree here. So this one, the state overview, is divided into EPA regions. There are 10 EPA regions in the United States. If we go ahead and turn that on, we'll see that it has loaded to the 1900s. Well, that's not exactly useful for us. And so that's one thing you're going to want to watch throughout the use of this application, is that time does change up here. If we want to view all of our points, we'll go ahead and move it clear to the end of time and clear to the beginning of time, and it will go ahead and it will start loading all of our points there in the background. To make things easier on yourself and Google Earth, if you're only interested in a certain region of the United States, it's best if you go ahead and turn off all the ones that we don't really need. And so we'll go ahead and just turn on region 4, because that is where Alabama is, and that's what all of our questions are going to pertain to, is the state of Alabama. So we'll zoom in here and we will go over what these points actually mean. So we have quite a few different methods of visually encoding data into this visualization. And an overview of those is available here by clicking on the EPA regions. We have a visual encoding for occurrence, number of sample locations, the sample variance, the temporal distribution of our data, and the ability to select in-depth information by clicking on the data. And the ability to select in-depth information by clicking on the data. So we'll first go over the temporal aspect of our data. You'll notice that it is apparently all floating off the ground. But what does that actually mean? What that means for us is that we have holes in our data. Our database doesn't have a sample point for every element for every year dating back to the first sample. However, you'll see over here, nitrate does have the first sample. If we click on that, we'll see that in the year 1971 we had one sample for nitrate, and that was taken in one sample site. And so that's worthy to note here is clicking on a ring, which represents a single year of data, will give you in-depth information about that year. Then if you go to the top of the data tree here, click on the yellow circle at the top of nitrate, that will give you an overview of the data for all of its sample years. So the min and maxes for the entire sampling period are displayed up here. So apparently nitrate's missing quite a few samples. We have a sample back from 1971 and 2008, but a lot of stuff missing here in the middle. But that's okay, because that's what this visualization is designed to show, is what does our database even have in it. So the next thing we'll go over here is we will go over the sample occurrence. So I will go ahead and turn on our occurrence legend up here. And so we have a few different gradations of occurrence, and those are all defined by color. So you'll see most of them are this dark foresty type green. Well, that means that those were yearly samples, taken one sample per year on average per sample site. However, you'll notice we do have one set of hourly samples, and those are ozone here in the blue. And we have different ranges of sample occurrences for elements across different years. You'll see fluoride changes back and forth quite a few times. Next, let's go ahead and show you what the sample variance is all about. So the sample variance determines the shape. So notice none of these are very circular. Well, that's on purpose. So we go ahead and we can change our aspect of our data up here. We can look down on it, which will be easier to see what our data is shaped like. See, fluoride is almost like a diamond. So what that is indicating is actually the variance between our minimum and maximum values. So the more diamond-like our data is, the greater the variance. So you'll see barium is less diamond-like, so it is a less of a variance. And over here, chromium basically has absolutely no variance on that sample year. But then we go down here, this one has quite a variance for lead, and all of them change a lot. So it's very easy to take a look at our data and see, well, most of these do vary between minimum and maximums over the years. So none of them are too constant when there are multiple samples per year. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the number of sample locations. That's important when we're talking about a database of environmental data. So we want to know how widespread are these samples per state. Is there only one sample location? Are there multiple? Well, what we've done here is we've encoded that by the x-axis, or the width of each of our points. So you'll see fluoride here gets very narrow on the y-axis, but it's rather wide on the x-axis, and so that indicates that there are more sample locations for fluoride than we would expect. See, there are 37 sample sites across the state for fluoride for this given year, which is 1997 to 1998. However, if we go over here to ozone, you'll see it's very narrow. And so what that is indicating to us is that, well, there is only one sample site and 8,000 different samples. And so when we're overviewing our data, we can just go ahead and look at it from above, and we will be able to determine what the number of sample locations are like comparatively across elements. So let's say we get really interested in one certain element. So I'm going to go ahead and turn them off here, and we're going to go ahead and zoom into lead. So we'll turn it on, double click on it, and it'll zoom us in right here to lead. And so we can look across the years here on lead, and we'll notice that for all of these years, everything appeared to be relatively the same. We can go ahead and check on that by clicking on it. The variance is very low. The number of sample sites remained nearly identical across all those years. Then we get to the very top year in 2010, number of sample sites dropped and the variance goes way up. And so this allows us to turn off all of the other distractions and look directly at a single point. And to do one more note on time here, you'll notice that when I double clicked on lead, it changed the time scale to be the exact period that we have it sampled for in our database. And so this is actually very interesting. If we want to only search for a certain set of years, we can go ahead and change the time slider, and you'll notice that it actually deletes the layers that don't fall within those years. So we can see between 2004 and 2010, we only have 2 sample years of data. So that's another way that we can shrink down all of the data that we are viewing, is by using the actual time slider. And so that is an overview of what all of the different visual elements are. So we'll go ahead and just do one quick look at the national view here. And so it's easier for the national view if you go ahead and turn it on and double click on it. That'll make sure that Google Earth gets everything loaded and changes the time correctly. And so the national overview is still in development, but what this is doing for us is allowing us to see which states comparatively have certain elements. That is the main purpose of the national overview, is just to say which states do have the data that I need, and then once you find that, you can go ahead and turn off the national overview and zoom into the state that you're really interested in. So that is an overview of the use of EnviroPlot with Google Earth, and that should be all that you need to know about EnviroPlot and Google Earth to get you through these evaluations. So now that we've gone over EnviroPlot and Google Earth, let's go ahead and do a short exercise. So pull your copy of Google Earth back up, and let's do a search. This will be a sample question, as you will find on the evaluation form. Let's say that we are interested in the element or the item fluoride from the database. How do you go about finding which states fluoride is in? So go ahead and take a few seconds here and find fluoride. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do it now, so if you need more time, go ahead and pause this. So the way that I would go about doing it is I would type fluoride in down here at the bottom, and I would do a search. You'll notice that it did actually pop it up right here. So go ahead and turn it on, double click on it, and we will notice that fluoride is in actually quite a number of the states. So now that you know that fluoride has been sampled in all of these states, let's go ahead and get some specific readings. Let's go ahead and take a look and see if fluoride is available in Alabama, for example. Go ahead and find that. I'm going to go ahead and go over it now. So if you need more time, go ahead and pause the video. But we know that Alabama is in EPA Region 4. And we know that fluoride is taken as a water sample. So we'll go down here and just look for it. Fluoride's right here, so we'll turn it on, double click on it. That'll take us down into Alabama and zoom us right into fluoride. You'll notice fluoride has varied quite a lot across the years. So those are the type of sample questions that we'll be having on this evaluation, as well as specific information about specific years. And just remember that you can click on an individual year to get information about it, or the yellow circle at the top to get an overview of the information from all the different years. So that is our review of Google Earth and EnviroPlot and our sample evaluation questions. So we'll go ahead and get this out of the way, and we will move on to the next phase, which is actually taking the evaluations. So we will note that there are 2 evaluations we'll be completing for each of our evaluation mediums. We will be doing an objective and subjective evaluation. The objective evaluation will be the one that asks you to find specific information from each of our information mediums, while the subjective evaluation lets you give a rating of the application, how easy it was to use, how it actually made you feel while using it, and etc. If you'd like more information on the subjective evaluation, where we got those questions, it came from a NASA task load index, which you can link to through here. So to start the evaluations, we have all of our links provided here below. So if you take the evaluation starting with EnviroPlot, the objective evaluation first, followed by the subjective, and then move on to the flat file evaluation system. And so for the flat file evaluations, all you will need are all of these files that we've included here in our zip folder. You'll take those and find the information that is asked of you in the objective flat file survey. Please note that some of this information may be hard to find. You may actually have to do calculations, and some of those calculations may not really be feasible within the amount of time that you're going to go ahead and allot yourself for this. We don't have a time limit, but do remember that we are tracking time and accuracy with each of these evaluations. So if you reach a question that you decide that you can't find the answer to, or don't want to take too much time to find the answer to, you can go ahead and put an X in the give up box or click give up and move on to the next question. And once all 4 of those evaluations are done, you have completed this, and thank you very much. All of the information will be saved online. If you have any questions while you're taking these evaluations, please don't hesitate to email me at my ORNL email address, or you can call the office during business hours, or if it's later in the evening, please go ahead and use my domain email. Thank you for watching this video tutorial on EnviroPlots and the evaluation process, and thank you very much for your help in this evaluation.